everyone, I'm Dr. Sebastian Gonzalez. Today I want to talk to you about small to medium-sized muscle tears, or in our profession we call them grade 1 and grade 2 tears. Grade 1s are also known as strains. These types of muscular injuries are very common in professional sports as well as recreational ones. Marathon running, cycling, CrossFit, and boot camps, actually very common to have muscle tears. But the thing is, a lot of people don't know how to manage them. Most people don't know any more than rest, ice, heat, compress, or the Price method. But realistically, if this is the only method you use prior to engaging in activity again, you're actually going to be hurting yourself and doing more damage than good. And actually a lot of these people end up having chronic injuries. That's right, rest is not always the best answer, and actually I'm going to go over with you today some of the things that I've been reading and research to basically find a better plan of attack. Day in and day out, I see athletes coming into my office who actually don't fully understand how to rehab muscle and tendon issues, which is actually a huge problem because they don't know what's important to them. And just so you know, I'm not anybody who would tell anyone to have excessive downtimes or not train through injuries, because I totally believe you can, but you have to do it right. One thing you guys should realize is a strain is actually a tearing of a muscle. It's a low grade 1 strain if you're basically to categorize it. So it's actually physically a ripping of the flesh where the muscle becomes tendon, or called the musculotendinous junction. This, actually, if you were to get a chicken breast, you can probably see that there's going to be a white strip right in the middle, and that's actually the tendon. So where the flesh meets that white strip is a very common spot for muscular injuries to happen. And before we go any further, I want any of the healthcare providers out there to know that I'm trying to make this into a patient-friendly lingo rather than talking over their heads. So just in case we're missing a couple of the important aspects in there in regards to jargon, just know that we're doing that for a reason. Now when you have a muscle tear, or a grade 2 rather, usually it leaves a bruise. Sometimes you'll feel like someone shot you or someone socked you in the thigh or wherever it might have been. And this is obviously larger than a strain, and that's the why sometimes it bruises. But I actually see a lot of times people, they seem like they're very scared after this. They take tons of time off, and I do mean tons. Sometimes months, sometimes years, sometimes they just stop activity. And I can completely understand this way of thinking. I did tear my hamstring too. I took probably 3 months off, but at the same time, that's the reason why I started looking at all this types of research around it. It was important to me. So just know that taking time off is important, but there is a better way of going through this. Now before we keep going, obviously we have to do a disclaimer. Just know this is not medical information intended to help you plan and manage your own condition. By no means am I telling you to do this stuff on your own. Merely I'm trying to get you to learn about things so you can go in and be better educated to talk to your doctor, so you can have a good plan of attack and be on board with it. Because I can tell you one thing that I've seen a lot with the people that I deal with is that when you have someone not on board with your program or don't understand it, they won't get the same results either. So it is important to know that stuff. Now, what does the research really say about rest? So I know there was one study in 1941 that was by Allen and Mason. They noted about, there was an injury to a tendon, and they said about 4 to 5 days after that injury, the gap, or let's just say this is the gap here, it was filled up with a jelly-like substance. So let's almost think about a spider web. During that period of time, it was actually more vulnerable to more damage if you excessively stretched it or mobilized it. So according to them, they're saying about at least 5 days of rest is not a bad idea. So during this period of time, which I call the vulnerability period, would be not bad for the Price method or immobilization. Now, following that vulnerability period, we have something we like to call the mobilization period. And what this, and we're going to estimate this because not all research agrees, is between about 7 and 21 days. I believe that the Allen and Mason article actually noted that it was probably best within about 2 or 3 weeks to really mobilize and stretch the area. But I think you guys can probably see that within the first week or so, sometimes it's indicated that you should be stretching. However, if you do it wrong or do it too much, you can actually create some damage and stop, or you're not basically facilitating the healing process anymore. So I think you all see there's a gray area here. Now, more information on this phase, or the mobilization phase, we're going to go over into a different video. We actually think that it'll actually be better this way because we want to spend a little bit more depth. It's a little bit more complex as we go, and this initial video is mainly for a base amount of knowledge. Now, if you guys haven't done it already, we actually have a YouTube feed. Obviously, we have a video on YouTube here. So actually, up in the corner here, you'll be able to see that there's that one or that one. I don't know which one it's going to be. It's going to be in the upper left corner. There's going to be a logo up there. So you can click on that and subscribe to our feed anytime you want to, so you can get that next video when it comes out. Also, too, in the other corner, there's going to be a logo, a little bigger one, which is going to be to our ebook. It actually goes to our website. Through that, you can actually access our email feeds, which are full of podcasts and different videos and articles and stuff that we can't put on YouTube because it's a different type of platform. So I think you guys would really enjoy that. But obviously, this first one, we're just going through a base amount of knowledge. But check out those things. You will not be disappointed. I can almost guarantee it. Now, back onto the hamstring topic. I've actually had people that have told me they're better after less than a few weeks of care. And their main way of dealing with it was that they just basically stopped all activity. They stopped running, cycling, sprinting, you name it, and they just stopped activity. But I want to actually present to you guys or tell you about a piece of research that actually would be helpful in understanding why it's important to not ignore even minor strains. And actually, it was, I think it was in 2006, actually, Sharma, they had Sharma was the researcher, so they took a sheep tendon. So they had one healthy and one unhealthy tendon. From the time of injury on this unhealthy tendon, they gave it 12 months to basically just rest. After that, they took enough force to see what the strength was on each tendon and probably rupture them. So they found that the healthy one, actually, it did okay. This one only did about 60% the strength of this one. So what that tells me is that if you only rest, you're not actually going to get back to the point that you were once before. All right, it takes a little bit more than just rest to do so. So with that in mind, there is a proper way of rehabbing these things, but you have to get on it. You have to actually follow a plan of attack and strengthen. Now, in videos to come, we're actually going to go more of a piece-by-piece type of approach as well. There's optimal time frames for doing training for these types of conditions, but actually, according to research, is actually almost deadlines. All right, and if you don't address certain things coming up to these deadlines, you can develop more of a chronic injury, even from something simple as a strain. And for the record, I do believe that most people with these types of conditions can get into around like 98% most of the time of how they feel, and there's no reason they can't continue with certain activities. Now, the next thing we're going to do is the mobilization period. That's going to come in the next video, but I want you guys to realize that in the meantime, you can always check out our other videos on our feeds. And again, I'm not sure which corner we're going on, but there's going to be a logo, and there's going to be a bigger logo or a box where you can access our ebook, our feed, our podcast. All the good stuff is going to go on there. Most of it goes on, I'm pointing the wrong direction again. But anyways, on our website or on our email feed is going to where most of the good stuff is going to go. We try to get a lot of it on YouTube, but obviously different mediums, can't fit it all in a video. Take care, guys, and hope you guys enjoyed.